Welcome to the education panel. My name is Megan Bradley, and I'm a career counselor with the Career Center on campus. How many people have visited us in the Career Center? Okay, like 2 people. My hope is that after this, you'll see how valuable this experience is and you'll come visit us. We're located in the administration building, which is on the corner of 7th and San Fernando. And we're open every day, Monday through Friday. So we are here today to learn a little bit about the hiring process for teachers. How many of you are about to graduate with your credential?
Wow.
Or have it? Okay, great. And how many are undergrad students considering a career in teaching? Okay, so nobody.
Okay.
That's all right. Well, welcome. You're in the right place. So what we're going to do today, I put the agenda up here. We're going to get to know our panelists, ask them a couple questions about the hiring process for teachers. And then what we're going to do is we're going to actually do a mock interview role play. We'll see them give an example of what it looks like to answer some of those teaching questions. And then actually we'll move into allowing you to practice as well. So this is the time where people are like, this makes me feel uncomfortable at the table here. I really encourage you to stay to practice those interview questions. We're just going to do it for about 20 minutes and then we'll be brief. And then after that, I'll allow us to ask some of the questions of the panelists that you have in the audience. And then also I'll ask a couple brave people to give examples of some of their interview questions. Number 1, you get a prize, but number 2, you get to really show off in front of these people that might potentially have positions for you. So what you'll learn about the teacher fair is that sometimes right there on the spot people will ask you some of those interview type questions or schedule interviews for later in the afternoon. So it's important to practice that. I encourage you to stick around for that. So you will see in that pile of papers that you picked up, one of these is an evaluation. I'll ask you to really fill out the whole thing at the end, but just keep that in mind as we're going through. If you're thinking of things that you'd like to continue to learn, I really appreciate the feedback so we can make this a really relevant program. So one change to the panelists, you'll see we've got 4 instead of 5 here. Valerie, who's on the program agenda, cannot make it today. But she told me to tell you she does have many positions open, and she'll be at, or people from her school district will be at 2 of the teacher fairs that I have advertised. So let's go ahead and get started. If I could have my panelists just give us an introduction, tell us a little bit about what your role is.
Yeah. My name is Grace Penn, and I work with the San Francisco Unified School District. Thank you. And my role is I'm on the human capital team at SF Unified, and essentially I work with teachers like yourself and other credentialed staff and work with our schools to get hired in our district.
My name is Mary Berkey. I'm currently at Union School District. This is about my 8th year there in HR, and I also did 6 years before that at the county office. So when we get to the fair part, I'll give you a few pieces of advice for that day. But yes, and I hire lots of teachers, and this year I have lots of openings, and that's a first.
I'm Mike Gallagher. I'm the assistant superintendent in the Sunnyvale School District. I started my teaching career as a student teacher at San Jose State. After that, I was a high school English teacher in Eastside at Andrew Hill High School and did a couple of different roles there before moving to Cupertino as a principal of a middle school, and now I'm in Sunnyvale. I say that in part because a lot of us have been in different districts, but we all are on your side, and whether you're student teaching in my district, or if I interview you, or one of the teachers in my district interview, we're all pulling for you, and we'll help you however we can within the education community.
Karen Allard, pleasure to meet all of you. Moreland School District. I received my master's from San Jose State University, and I'm in my 10th year. Yay! I'm in my 10th year as principal, and fun fact, I am principal at a district that I went to school at, taught at, and am now principal.
Wow.
So let's start with the teacher kind of hiring trends and practices. So when does your district do most of its hiring? And what do you recommend for students applying to teaching positions for this coming academic school year? We can start with Grace.
Yeah, so in San Francisco, we start our hiring. We have an early hiring window in April. So one of the things we recommend for students and teachers is that you should get your application in with us as soon as possible, especially we're about mid-March, or going to be approaching mid-March. And we hire all throughout this summer. In the last couple years, every year we've hired about 600 new teachers. Every here, so we're a larger district. We have about 53,000 students, and so we do hire throughout the summer.
We never come to numbers like that in the district. We try to do as much hiring as we can in the spring before school's out. We would like you to be in place, knowing, planning, dreaming all summer long about where you're going to be in the fall. And so we'll do a lot around the time of the teacher recruitment fair. That's sort of our first shot at it. We don't do as many interviews during the day as we do the following couple of weeks, and we invite people to apply. We do everything on EdJoin. I know you don't, right? We put all our openings on EdJoin, we screen from there. We usually expect somewhere between 250 and 400 applications for a K-5 or K-6 job. And this year, I know going in, I have 12 openings. Of those, 11 require a multiple subject, and that's the most I've ever had at this point in the year, in the last 8.
So I'll start with the trends first. We've been hiring for the last several years. We never really slowed down during the recession because we were just really fortunate with our finances and stuff like that and our growth. So now, while we were hiring before, we're hiring at a greater rate now because one of the things that we're noticing, at least in our district, is that retirements and resignations, because people are moving out of the area, because other haves have gotten jobs out of the area and that kind of thing, have increased. So it's a great time for you to go into education because there's a lot of jobs. So our hiring is up. We actually kicked off are there any Sunnyvale student teachers here? Okay, did you get interviewed yet? Yeah, so we started interviewing our own student teachers right off the bat, just as kind of a courtesy to them, and to thank them for being in our district. But don't be put off if you weren't in that. So just like Mary said, at the county job fair next week.
22nd, March 22nd.
Yeah, it's coming up. We don't interview so much at the job fair, but we set up appointments for after the job fair. And so it's all just starting now. So you're doing just fine. I think that's a good overview.
And from the site level, district office level, this is the time of year where Human Resources actually works with us as well as the business department and will say, looks like your projected enrollment is going to be this. And so based on the current staffing that you have, your proposed numbers should be this, which means you have these openings in which you can go ahead and apply for. So,
Let me say something about like when people get hired. Mary kind of alluded to it a little bit, and so did Grace. It's really from now through even into the fall.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
before school starts.
Yeah, and even into the fall. So I kind of see it as there's little waves. So there's obviously a first wave where like the HR person in Moreland, like I'm the HR person in Sunnyvale, will say, here's how many teachers you get to hire, and we already have a few resignations and retirements. Okay, so there's a little wave like right now. But then there's more waves as the enrollment becomes more clear and as people start making their decisions about moving out of the area. So, and then there's a lot of hiring like in June, right before the principals want to go home, right? But it even continues into the summer because I'm around in the summer. I'm sure the others are too. So don't give up. Stay in contact with the districts that you're interested in. Continues also.
Thank you. So Michael, you alluded to this a little bit, but I'm wondering, what is your impression for all the panelists of how the economy is affecting hiring right now? And are you seeing waves of teachers retiring?
Yeah, I mean, I just got another one today. So for our district, we have 8 retirements now. That's huge. A few years ago, we had like 2. So the numbers are really up, and there's a few more resignations and stuff that we're even expecting on top of that. So altogether, I think about 20 people are leaving, either for retirement or we have a fantastic teacher whose husband got a job in North Carolina, so she's moving out. So the economy has really loosened things up. Also, young parents are more confident to stay home with their young children and take a leave. So there's just, yeah, it's good. That's all good for you.
I've had more leave requests to stay home
Right.
this year than I've had in the past. So that does bode well for new teachers getting into the job market. We also are seeing our districts perform well. At least I know all 3 of ours. I'm not sure. I can't talk for all of San Francisco, but we have had huge growth In the last 8 years, we've gone by over 1,000 students. So this year, we have 4 more openings just because of growth and not, no impact on another person. So it's looking good.
I would agree. I think that enrollment has been increasing over the last couple of years in San Francisco. I think in terms of retirements and resignations, they've been pretty steady for us. I mean, we're larger, and so there just naturally is more people retiring and resigning every year. What's nice for us, and probably I assume for your districts as well, is that budgets are looking a lot healthier this year. And for the very first time in many years, we are not doing any layoffs this year. And so in terms of hiring, it's actually a really great thing because we're able to hire earlier for all subject areas in our district. Everything from multiple subject to single subject, social science and English, and things like that.
The new local control formula is allowing a lot of the districts in the area that went 30-1 because they could and because funding was bad to get back to what they want is an average per site of 24-1. So I'll have some classes at 26 and some at 22 all at the same school. But in trying to keep that down, several districts around here who said, okay, so we're at 30, we've got to get down there. That's a big pool to hire. It's kind of remnants of 16, 20 years ago, and all of a sudden, here's 20-1, and we all went on a rampage to try to find teachers. So we're seeing more of that environment than we have in a long time. Right?
I'm just laughing because you talked to them about 20 years ago.
And you weren't alive 20 years ago.
Okay, thank you. So you'll notice one of the handouts that I gave you, on one side has a resume and on the other side has a cover letter. And that's just for your reference as you're preparing to apply to some of these different positions. Getting online with San Francisco Unified School District and EdJoin and all of that. So we're going to ask a couple questions about the resume and cover letter application, those types of things. So what do you think is important for candidates to include on their resume and cover letter? Maybe let's start with Karen.
I would definitely say any experience that you can share. You want the resume to look clean, kind of a lot of white space so that it's easy and to read and follow in format. I would suggest, especially from my colleagues from the HR department, having several people look over the resume except for any grammar or spelling or those type of errors. There's probably nothing worse than getting a resume in which there's some errors on there that should have been caught earlier. Student teaching experience, activities like to be involved in anything outside the realm of student teaching that has that student-led flair that could give us some more opportunities about you on paper before you could be called in for an interview. I would definitely say also on the cover letter itself, some background information, and again, I'm hoping my colleagues would agree with me that they're probably this year, especially because it's such an optimistic and time for opportunity, something about the Common Core has to be on there, on how you feel you have been adequately prepared to have high expectations type of learning and those 4 C's of challenging and creativity, and you are the one to lead our schools into the 21st century with learning, definitely needs to be somewhere on there, I would say.
So some tips. First of all, the most important thing, the thing that qualifies you for the position is your credential. And some people get confused. I just had a back and forth email thing with the person from, I forgave her because she's from out of state. She kept saying, I'm going to have a preliminary credential. Like, what kind of credential? So if it's multiple subjects, say multiple subject. Okay. If it's single subject, say what the single subject is. I know that sounds obvious, but sometimes we forget. And my principals always want to know what grade level experience you've had. Okay, so listing the grade levels in which you student taught, sometimes that's missing. Everything else Karen said about it being clean. We read them, at least I do, I read them all on EdJoin on the computer. So again, some things that seem obvious, but make sure it's right side up. Make sure it's PDF. It's a little thing, but like if I go down the list, if they're just sort of in a logical order, the things, your cover letter, your resume, the letters of references, we need 3 letters of reference, make sure it's complete. Just nice and organized. It shows an organized mind. The things that we look for, like absolutely the Common Core. You know, you all have had social emotional learning infused in all of your coursework, and as those of you who know our district know that we're a partner with San Jose State on that. So anything referring to social emotional learning is a real draw for our particular district.
In addition, if you tell me that your references are on request, if I have 400 applicants, I don't have time to request them. So you move to the bottom of the pile. If you actually give me a name, rank, and serial number, it doesn't have to be a lot. And it can be the same people as you've sent in references from. But don't leave those things blank on EdJoin. I've had people go see resume. Again, there's certain things in the application. Are you organized? Do you have your thought processes down? Did you fill it out well? Did you check it for spelling? Did you do all of those pieces? That's one spoken piece to us, because we don't know you. So every piece of paper counts. Does your resume look appropriate? The whole old rule about make it only one page, if you've got enough and you've done other things, if it spills onto 2, I'd rather it spill onto 2 than not be able to find it. 0.7 font, I'm now too old. But when Michael said about when you copy things or you scan them in, I've gotten things where the letter is like this big and it's stuck up in the corner because it shrunk, and people don't go back and check those. Make sure everything you put in is clear and easily read. Funny fonts, it's cute, but if I can't read it, it's problematic. Making sure you have an appropriate email to put on your application and your resume. I have received drunk before 5 at hotmail.com. I received pinkpoo at AOL.com. It's funny to your college friends, but those aren't going to, if it's got to be your first and your last name, or love to teach, or, you know, that's a great, somebody's probably got that one already. Born to teach, born to be a kindergarten teacher, at something, because we see those things right in front of us, and it's just kind of scary. And the clarity of spelling right, there should not be the word I ever in your resume. It's a third-person document. I only a few times in your letter of introduction. And people ask me, should they put other things in? If you've been a barista at Starbucks for the last 6 years and you can deal with the clientele when they're crabbiest before their coffee, you have learned some skills. Turn that skill into something that you can use on your resume. That's okay. But if you can't connect the dots somehow, it's not good customer service, it's not an ability to work with an adult population under stress. If you can't connect the dots, don't put it on. So, you know, nannies, you've worked with kids before. You worked at a summer camp, you've worked with kids before. You've worked in a high powerful something or other. The other new one, if you've got something with technology, if you've done anything with tech, that helps us know what we're looking at too, because that's going to be such a big part with Common Core and smarter balanced testing, and so help us out. The more you tell us, the better it is.
I would say for us, we really ask applicants to quantify in your resume. So, and that's really what sticks out. I mean, even if I wasn't in this position, I think quantify, talk about numbers, talk about data that you've used, that you've seen, and prove that you've been effective in the classroom in as much as you can. We also, I agree with Michael, it's really important to put your credential at the top of your resume. If we have to look through pages to find what your credential is, we probably won't look that hard. Same with if you're a multilingual, if you speak another language, put that on your resume as well. And our principals definitely look for that. I would also say in San Francisco, we have a big emphasis on social justice and equity. And so if you have experience working with organizations that work around those missions, or if you've done work in those areas, or you're passionate about it in some way, it should be reflected in your resume. I think those really stand out. And then if you have a website or a blog, you're welcome to put it on there, but just make sure the content is clean and appropriate. We have seen some rather inappropriate things on resumes, and just be smart about it. I mean, this is a professional resume, and it should be exceptional. And check your spelling.
Just a thought I had as everyone was talking. So we each shared a different little tip about what we look for in our district. And you notice they were all a little bit different. Now, that's not to say that we don't care about Common Core, or you don't care about social emotional learning, or so I don't care about social justice or whatever. We all do. But each of the districts and then each of the schools within the district has a little bit different focus. So if you're applying to a district, read the district's website and try to figure out, well, first of all, if it's a match for you. Don't say, I'm really committed to something that you're not, right? But find out if it's a match, and then connect yourself to the things that are a match for you.
And I would also say, kind of on a related note, is you should do your homework as you're
That's right.
applying to districts. I mean, there's been more than a few times where I've gotten letters addressed to other districts.
Thank you.
And I feel really embarrassed for the applicant, but then it goes into the recycling bin. So yeah, do your homework, learn about where you're applying, because this is also for you, right? If you want a job in this district, then you should learn where you're going to be working.
It is really critical. I have a stack, and I usually take them to smaller forms, and I take out and read some of the things I've received, and that really belong to some of my colleagues and people who are looking for things. My district, my board likes to say we're losers because we're not getting any of the extra money because it's not the population we deal with. So telling me that you're going to close the achievement gap and that's why you want to come to my district, you're aiming in the wrong direction. That's not. We have other issues. We have everybody's got something, but that's that know where you're going. You won't know that at the fair. So we're not expecting personalized, like you went and researched all 33 districts that are going to be at Santa Clara in 2 weeks, and Mike's getting a letter to him, and I'm getting a letter to me. Are you coming to our fair? No. But more collect, in Karen's district. Not at that point, but if we're talking to you at the fair and we really say, I really would like to see your application, we're putting Join Live next week. Make sure in it say, I met Mary Berkey and she asked me to apply.
Yeah.
Because those are key. If somebody tells you that at the fair, do it. They're helping. They're trying to help you.
And it is impressive at the fair if there's a particular 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 of the districts that you are really interested in. You already know that it's a match. Then you could write a personalized letter, but we don't expect you to do all 33.
And we don't expect folders, and we don't expect pictures on your resumes. When I see a picture on a resume, I say to myself, the person's planning on suing me later for being something opposite of me. They're male, they're not Caucasian, they're really young, I'm really old, so. But that's what a picture tells me. So,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, something else I just thought of is that it's really important to keep your resume current. I know it can be a chore to update your resume, but so our district, we use a separate application system called SearchSoft. So we're not on EdJoin, but in our system, and I'm sure with EdJoin, you can update your cover letter and your resume. So, once you get your credential, you can update that with, completed credential, or, if you have new experiences or activities or skills, you can add those as well.
Thank you. So just briefly, do you have any tips for the letters of recommendation? Anything that candidates should be keeping in mind as they're asking people to write those letters of reference for them?
If the first thing it says is you're punctual, ask someone else.
What's important is who they're from. So, obviously you need to get your cooperating teacher, your master teacher. That's really important. That's a person who we would call for a reference. If your principal, this is really hard, and I never want to make people feel nervous about this because some people have principals that just aren't around. But if you can get your principal to write a letter of reference, and it's, your principal, you'll do it if you can, if you have time, right? And so that's a really strong letter. So the ideal ones are a principal and the cooperating teacher, and then your university supervisor. That's ideal. If you can't get your principal, that's okay. You could have both cooperating teachers and another professor or something like that.
I think we're looking for too, like wording that says, I highly recommend, or I recommend without reservation this particular person. We've gotten to the point where we're good at kind of reading through the lines, where someone, even for me, asked for a letter of recommendation, and I didn't think they were that great. So I can write not that great of a letter of recommendation, and HR can pretty much very quickly look through those and be like, that's just an average letter. So you want to be asking someone who's going to, without reservation, you are the candidate for one of our schools, because it's also not uncommon for, at the bottom or wherever you decide to put on your resume, your letters of recommendation or references, for if they know someone in their world of HR administration, they might just go ahead and call and say, so-and-so put in an application, tell me about him or her, to get some more information.
If I get one from Sunnyvale, I am going to call Michael. And sometimes he won't know anybody. That's better than he knows bad things about you. So we're a small community. The HR folks in this county get together once a month over all sorts of issues, and we know each other and we trust each other and we support each other, and we've been known to find somebody and walk them over to another district, because I don't have an opening in science this year, but I know Mike does, or I don't have an opening in PE, but I know that Karen needs a PE teacher at her site. So it's being visible and making it known what you're capable of doing. If you haven't asked your principal to come in and observe you, do. If you know someone else at the district office and can call and ask them to come watch, it's all in your favor if someone else has seen you. And even if it was a day that didn't go well, it says a lot about your moxie that you're willing to learn from it. So don't stress, oh my God, it bombed and they saw it. Yep, and it's gonna do it again, and it's how you recover. It makes a big, big difference.
For us, we are a little different. We actually don't collect reference letters. As part of our application, we ask you to submit contact information for your reference, an email or a phone number, and our system automatically sends them a reference form where they can fill out and write some words about you. And then you are welcome to attach reference letters that you may have as part of your application, but it's not required as part of the preliminary application. But with that said, we definitely look at all the references that come in, and we definitely look for references that can speak to your leadership or your education-related activities, and they're important. Yeah.
I was just going to add that I think for the majority of us, all paperwork goes through human resources. Every once in a while, I'll get a random email saying, took a look at your school site, looks like something I might be a perfect match for, can I set up an interview with you? And the response is, everything goes through human resources. If you'd like to continue the conversation or let them know, here's their contact information. But for the majority of the time, if an email sent to a principal regarding an interview process or would like the opportunity to meet, we would decline and lend them to the human resources office.
Yeah. There's legal reasons that it all has to be centralized to make everything fair.
Thank you. So now we're going to move into our mock interview, and we're going to start with Mary, who is what we like to call a green candidate. So we'll have the other panelists ask her some questions.
Well, give me just a minute to have softened this up.
She looks forward to this all year long. It's her favorite thing. She takes notes from candidates from other universities. No.
Every bad thing I've ever seen. Watch it.
Oh, no. Every bad thing I've ever seen. Welcome, thank you for coming today. We're looking forward to a great conversation about education with you. We do have a few questions that we would like to ask you and are looking forward to hearing your responses. So first question would be, can you please share your experiences and training related to teaching?
Oh, I didn't think you were going to start with that. I graduated from San Jose State. I have a major in liberal studies. And then I went on, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, so I actually took off for a little while. And then I thought, if I taught in the summer, or if I taught, I'd have my summers off, so I decided to go back and get my credential. And now I just finished my credential, and I student taught in 1st grade and 6th grade, but I don't want to do middle school because the big kids scare me.
Thank you.
So second question is, can you describe your system of classroom management?
Can you tell me what you mean by a system?
We'll move on to the next question.
Or, well, I don't really have one. I really want the kids to like me, and so I work really hard in getting them to like me, and then they usually behave for me.
Keyword, usually.
And what happens when they don't behave for you?
Oh, if they don't behave in my class, they have to go to the office. They must behave in my class, or they have to go to the office.
What do you feel are the vital components of an effective lesson plan?
I need to think about that.
You can chew on that for a while.
I think it has to have a good beginning and a middle and an end. I try to make sure there's something really active for the students to do so they remember things. And I try to make sure that that there's a really hard test at the end because their parents expect them to show that they learned a lot. And I'm getting better at planning it so I know sort of what I'm going to test before I quite get there. I used to have, the first ones I did, I couldn't do that at all.
Thank you.
And if I asked your supervisor or your master teacher to tell me about you, what would he or she say?
I'm really funny, and I'm really enthusiastic, and I volunteer to do everything. I will do anything to help my school, that I don't send as many students to the office anymore, and that I have the potential to be a good teacher.
Do you have any questions you would like to ask us?
I don't think so.
Thank you for coming today.
Thank you, Mary. All right, and we're going to have Michael give a demonstration of what an experienced candidate might look like.
So first of all, before I get into character, because I'm not naturally a good interviewer, so I've done this the last couple of years, and they always make me be the experienced candidate, which means on the way over, I have this anxiety about going to an interview and doing well. And I think that's actually a good thing for the person who does most of the interviewing. And the thing that I take away from that is that when you go in the class, when you go into the interview room, it's natural to feel a little bit nervous, but you should also know that everyone in the room that you're walking into wants you to be the one. So they're all on your side. I hope you're all on my side. Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you.
For coming to meet with us. So just a couple questions for you today. Can you tell us a little bit about why our district should hire you?
So, so I've learned a lot about the district through the student teaching that I've done here this past semester, and one of the reasons I asked to be placed in this particular assignment was because of the real focus on the achievement gap, and that's a real passion of mine, and it's also a passion that, or something that I learned a lot about in my coursework at San Jose State. And then the other thing is, that was very important to me, was the strong social emotional learning focus that I got at San Jose State, which is part of the reason why I chose San Jose State, and it's also a real focus in this district. So I think it's a good match.
Could you describe for us your system of classroom management?
Yes, so the first thing I want to do is I want to get to know the students really well and make connections with them personally. And it can be little things like, well, certainly like knowing their name, but at the beginning, know little facts about them, like if they're really into soccer, or they have a favorite cartoon character, or whatever it is. Try to build that into my small conversations that I have with the kids so that they know that I care and that I'm interested. Then the next thing is it's really important to have clear expectations, and I learned a lot from my master teacher who has a really good system. And so I think to start off, I'm going to use her system because I can see how that worked, and then eventually I'll probably modify that for myself. But to set clear expectations and then to follow through on those expectations. But the thing that my master teacher kept reminding me was to do it with warmth and caring. So it's not about catching kids being bad, it's more often catching them being good.
Thank you. What are the vital components of an effective lesson plan?
Okay, so the first thing is that I have to have a clear objective, and in terms of a clear objective, I want that objective, I always write the objective on the board, and I go through a couple of exercises to know that the students know what the objective is, so I have them repeat the objective after me, have them write it out in their own way, but a couple of checks for understanding just so that the students know what the objective for the lesson is. I'll always want to do some sort of pre-assessment for to see where they are at the beginning. Sometimes that has to be more elaborate, sometimes it's less elaborate, but I'll always want to do that. There is a guided practice portion, there's a portion where the kids are working on their own, and then, of course, there's an assessment at the end, but then throughout, I need to be checking for understanding as well.
Thank you.
And if we were to talk to your supervisor or your master teacher, and what would they say about you?
I hope that my two master teachers would say that I've learned a lot and that I have a real passion for working with the students at the school, and that I'm very committed to making a difference in education. Is that it? Okay, I get the job.
Thank you. I'll you sit back down. So can I just get from the panelists, what are some of your impressions of each of those interviews?
I think there's the way that Michael portrayed himself, there is a definite art to professionally, for lack of a better word, selling yourself.
Yeah, that's hard.
And I think even for me sitting here and saying, when you come into the room, whether it's a panel or one-on-one, however the district decides to do it, we truly do want you to be the one. Where when you walk out of the room, we go to HR and say, don't let them leave the parking lot. And it's hard when you're not a showboater to sell yourself to individuals in the room who have a higher authority, but that's what the interview process is all about. And sharing your knowledge and your passion and your expertise and what you're going to do for the school to take it to the next steps is all some of those interview questions that we usually ask.
What he did well was not oversell. For those of you that you just finished your credential, you haven't saved the world yet. I get letters, and then I get in interviews with, I have such an extensive background. You've got a really great background maybe, but you're going to sit next to people who are interviewing have been teaching for 5 or 10 years. It's not that same kind of thing. So you maybe had a great opportunity in student teaching, and you got to practice some extraordinary skills. So, but he didn't overinflate it, so I didn't think he was faking it. And that's okay. You may not know all the answers when you get in, and that's okay. But do not chew gum. Do not.
Yeah, I agree. It is a fine balance between selling yourself appropriately and also kind of being humble at the same time, because you don't want to come across as the know-it-all. Because I think as our administrators, as our principals, as we interview you, we're also looking for like people who we want to work with. my colleagues who, we spend many, many hours with, and so you want to be likable with.
I always say there's that, we can help as administrators or district office personnel, help someone be a great teacher. We can't teach personality. And so there's that time where sometimes people in interviews where they're so kind of cold, they have all the right answers, but I don't know who they are as a person, or that smile, or what type they might be on staff, or would they join with the rest of the staff easily and be collaborative, or is it still so stout and almost uncomfortable and for me on the other side of the table that I don't know if they would be a match for the school.
Also, if you notice, there's posture things. Michael sat up, I tried to slouch a little bit, but I've had people come in and really kind of lean back and take possession of the room. That's a little too casual, and sometimes a little too cocky, and that will get you, because when we're looking at people to like, people to work with, I'm looking for somebody that will grow. And if you know everything, now, and you're so fantastic, I'm probably not going to hire you, because then when we try to coach you into doing something, it's going to be really difficult, and I'm not going to put that kind of work on when we're on principals. I would rather have somebody who had that growth potential, that talked about, he's doing this, and I'm not probably going to start like my student teacher or my mentor, to show I learn, I grow, I adapt. We're looking for those skills. Like Karen said, we can't fix people. And anybody that I've had to non-reelect, it's been about how they worked with people. I've yet to have a non-reelection where it was about they actually couldn't teach, or they couldn't do the content. In fact, in some cases, the kids in the class actually liked them and advanced it too. But they went to somebody who could work with the staff and could learn and grow together. And so looking for that piece, and that's hard to say, but it does come out who you are, how you shake people's hands, how you make people feel comfortable about being around in the room with you.
So as hopefully you know, there are 2 teacher fairs that are coming up, and so that's what that third handout is. It gives you tips on how to be successful at each of those events. Gives you details on the dates. But for those of you that haven't been before, that can be a really intimidating event. So I'm wondering, I want to ask the panelists, what's some advice that you can give them about how to be successful at the teacher fair? What preparation should they do ahead of time?
Bring an umbrella. It's rained 8 out of the last 9 years. You look like sad puppies when you come in dripping wet, because you're standing out in line waiting to get in there first. That's the practical piece.
Yeah. I guess a couple things I'd say is, there are going to be, so this is the Santa Clara County Recruitment Fair, so it's unfortunately it's only. Yeah. So have a kind of a plan about which districts you want to visit, and be calm and be patient, because there's a lot of long lines. I guess wear comfortable shoes is a good idea. Dress nicely, but also realize that you're going to be moving around a lot within that environment for a while. Our district has already posted all of the positions that we post very generally, like multiple subject teachers, 1st through 5th grade. So for the districts that, most districts will do that. I think you said you do that. I'm sure Moreland does that. Most districts will do that before the job fair. We did that last week. So it would be great if you have your application up already. So that would be helpful, because we're going to be not interviewing on the spot, but setting up interviews for later. And just come with a few questions for each district. Understand that you really only get to make what they call like an elevator speech, because you're going to be in a long line, and people are going to, we're all educators. We all want you to do really well, and we want to be really nice, and we're very forgiving, but we also are really concerned because we're caring people about the person behind you who's been waiting for a long time. So, an elevator speech, so a short, just a few things about yourself, where you student taught, something interesting, and that's about all we have time for, unfortunately, and we collect your resume. What else would you say to that?
But I would say in that short amount of time, and it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm really excited about all the opportunities. We, at least in Moreland, I'm hoping I'm okay to say this, but in the back of our thing, there are boxes that we put after the conversation that we have with you in of, we write, call now for interview, or maybe, or, so right within that first couple of minutes, they're already kind of separated and sorted. And we will, as the principal is there when we meet the person, that's exactly what we do, we'll fill out the thing. But if we find someone that we're like, don't let them go, it's call on Monday or get them into an interview right away.
We have a lot of goodies on our table, most of the districts do. It's okay to come up and borrow a pen or take a pen or have a candy that's sitting there. It's not okay to come up and take a handful of them. There's weird things you say about yourself when you do that. Oh, so I, like, 7, really? You needed that? But there's,
I apologize, Mary, that was me.
but there's certain things about manners and pushing, people will actually push other people aside and will note that. It's the things that we think you shouldn't have to ever tell anybody about common sense and rudeness. Everything your mama ever taught you is right. Follow her direction. At the fair, along with comfortable shoes, that both of the rooms that you'll stand most of the time on, and even in the hallway spaces, the floors are concrete. So it's not a good time for fetish shoes, it's not a good time for high platforms, it's not a good time for short skirts. If you bend over, there are things we're gonna see we don't want to. I don't need to know underwear brands. I have tattoos, you'll never see mine. I don't wanna see yours when I'm doing an initial recruitment. It's not the appropriate time and place. So I'm giving you the practical stuff. This is the stuff that creeps people out and gets people not hired. But hi, I'm Mary. I really would love to teach in your district. My student taught in 4th grade. I'm excited about being there. That kind of thing, short and sweet. If we ask you what you prefer to teach, I don't know is okay, but if you have a preference, tell me, because if you want 2nd grade and I've got a 2nd grade opening, I'm looking to introduce you to the right principal. And so if you want 2nd grade, I'm not going to waste Karen's time because she's looking for middle school. I'm going to bring you over to Grace, who may have a school with 3 openings in primary, who would be able to hire, and be able to really consider you. So
That's a question to expect, and I think a good answer is an honest answer, right? And in fact, that's always a good answer. So if you really want to teach 3rd grade or whatever it is, then don't be afraid to say it. If you're not sure, then an honest answer might be, well, I did my first student teaching in kindergarten, and did my next one in 3rd grade, and I was a little surprised by how much I really liked 3rd grade, but I found out that they're both really a nice match for me. Whatever the truth is, but say something, don't say I don't know.
I think even though we're not going to be at the fair, we go to a lot of recruitment fairs, and I think something that's important is, we've said this earlier about doing your homework. I think my least favorite thing I get at fairs is people who come up and say, hi, so where are you from? I'm like, excuse me? We're here to interview. And so do your homework before you approach your fair. And I think the introduction is so much stronger if you can say, hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm interested in your district because, and you have something that you know about that district that excites you and it comes across as genuine, because I'm interested in closing the achievement gap, because I am passionate about social justice and believing that all students can learn. Done. Like, that's a wonderful introduction for us. So do your homework, and don't ask if we have open positions, because we wouldn't be there if we didn't have open.
It's not, and the regular interview or that time, not appropriate to ask about salaries. You can find it all. I sort of think if you could find it on the website, probably. Do you have a health benefit package? Everybody does. We're in the age of ACA, so don't, it's that kind of stuff that are the gives that people are like, well, I have to have a question. We've, in fact, on our interview, taken off the question at the end. Do you have a question, anything you'd like to ask us? Because the things people ask sometimes are so stupid. I don't want to waste anybody's time with that. So I'll ask other questions. Some people want to know, but that's one that tells me if you've done your research. If you have a question, is there any possibility that there's going to be opening at Simon's next year because it's my favorite school in the whole district? I know you checked on something.
A good fallback is ask about the principal. No one will get paid.
How should you be prepared for Common Core?
But don't sound too needy.
Oh, yeah, that's
How
right.
do you have a lot of support for new teachers? Not enough for you,
Yes,
Lonnie.
So you've alluded to this in the preparation for the fair, but what what can students do to prepare for that interview process? What should they be doing ahead of time to make sure to make the best first impression during the interview?
Well, I think it's fair to ask the admin who calls you what the interview is for, right? So in our district, it's either a general interview. Everyone in our district gets interviewed at least twice. One, a general district interview, and one, a site interview with the principal. So it's fair to find out, and every district might be a little bit different. So find out what it's about. If they say, this is a general level 1 interview for multiple subject positions in the Sunnyvale School District, then you know it's about Sunnyvale. And now Sunnyvale, like a lot of districts, has huge diversity of the schools, right? So we have some very Title I schools, and we have some fairly affluent schools. So just being honest about the type of school you want to work with, we've got a school for you. If it's for a particular school, then go on the website and learn about that particular school. That's the best way to prepare. And it's being polite. Now, the one caveat I would say is you have to be, well, you will be anyway because you're really nice people. Be nice to the admin because they tell us.
I've been dying to meet that one. They were so sweet on the phone. I get that
Yeah.
all the time. I work for the nicest women in the world work with me.
Yeah.
They're amazing people. So treat them nicely when they call. It's not on here, or I didn't see it. Probably didn't take my glasses off. Portfolios. We don't bring them at all to our first round interviews. So if you're thinking of that, is it appropriate to bring a portfolio? And if they say no, don't bring it. We've had people, because if we do a round robin first round, every single principal and one teacher from every single school will meet you at our site. If you picture it speed dating to a fine-tuned point, and they will all meet you, but they don't have time for you to turn around, find page 7 and flip it open at that point, because you've just taken the whole time before you move. And I've actually asked people to leave the interview process when they've inhibited other people from getting the opportunity to answer, because that's not fair. So it tells you if you're rude at the interview, you're not going to be much nicer when you get the job. So
I would say just getting ready, wear something that you feel great in, that you feel confident in, that you're walking in there very proud of where you've come from and who you are, and you're going to be the one to walk into that room to say, this is my job, and I'm going to get this position, and blue's always a good color for a suit. So, but if you need to go splurge on a suit, do it. If you need to find something that you get in your car and you're driving into the parking lot, and you're like, this is my day, I highly suggest it. It's just that positive energy, that sending kind of that aura out there of, I'm feeling great.
I think someone's mentioned this earlier as well. I think it's okay to ask the administrator that you're interviewing with what that will entail. Because sometimes you'll go in for an interview and it turns into like a 4-hour multiple interview, or maybe even a demo lesson. And so you should ask that question early on, like, what will this include? And be on time. You'd be surprised by how many people are late to interviews, and it leaves a really bad impression.
Yeah, usually when we interview, we're interviewing a block of people in a row, and if one person's late, then we can't, if you're 10 minutes late, that's going to throw off the whole thing, so we can't have you go. We have to have the next person be on time, so all the rest are on time. My thoughts about portfolios per se, I would agree with Mary. It's probably good to bring backup information on everything, although you should have included everything in your online, in our case, EdJoin application. It should all be there, but if there's something new, that's okay. In terms of bringing information about lessons, I'm kind of of two minds on this. I've seen a recent interview where a candidate did a real nice job of just referring to some documents that she had, but there isn't, at least in a level 1 interview, there isn't really an opportunity to walk through a lesson incomplete. So you can bring some documents, but don't expect that they'd be shared necessarily, if that makes sense.
So in terms of first impressions, they're kind of hard to break after you've made that first impression. What are some things that people can do that would make a good first impression? And what are maybe some warning signs that it wouldn't be a great fit for the position you're hiring for?
handshake, eye contact, smile.
Yeah. we're trying to picture you in front of a classroom of whether it's kindergartners or in our case, 8th grade PE students or whatever it is. We're trying to picture you in that environment. And we also know that this is totally artificial. Talking to me, well, in many ways, is like talking to a kindergartner. But you get the idea, right? It's not the same as teaching kindergarten. It's different. We know that it's artificial, but we're just trying to get a sense of your presence, your self-confidence. We really like your idea about where are the clothes that you're most confident in, is unless they're jeans with holes in them. I mean, wear something nice that you feel like confident in.
I would say if you're bringing papers with you, if you're going to give us your resume, and this is a small thing, but I mean, don't go digging through your bag. And like you mentioned, we're hiring teachers, and we want someone who's organized. And if you tell us you're organized, but then we see you like flipping through and you can't find your resume, that's probably a bad sign. So just some small things I think make a big impression.
Now, if you've noticed, 3 of the 4 of us do have our cell phones with, and many people do that. If you're going into an interview and you can't stand to leave it in the car, turn it to off. I have actually had interviews where the phone went off and people have picked it up. And unless you tell me at the beginning that your mom's in the hospital and you're waiting for important news about surgery, in which case I'm going to go pick up the phone. Don't. It's disturbing and distracting. And when it's sitting there, people have a tendency to want to do that. And you watch that.